Hello, Dr. Robert Greene here. First of all, I wanted to thank you for taking a few minutes to listen about some of the ways we can partner to helping each other achieve your goal. Too often I think, patients will show up and want us to solve all the problems. But interestingly enough, we need to spend more time trying to help you understand the things that you can be doing on your end to help your odds of conceiving, whether you're trying naturally or with a fertility care provider. So today, what I want to do is I want to take a couple of minutes to, first of all, explain to you the current prevailing theories of what limits fertility so that you could better understand how the ongoing research is getting better and better at supporting what people should or shouldn't be doing. And as part of this, we'll even talk about some of the older ideas that often still get repeated today, but are actually becoming a little dated according to the most current research. So in order to begin the discussion, I think it's important that we get an idea of what the natural monthly conception rate is. And it's really interesting that even at peak fertility, the 1 month pregnancy rate only averages about 25%. And for a long time, we didn't really understand why our natural pregnancy rate was so low. Today, we realize it's primarily due to both egg and to a lesser degree sperm quality. Now, this is fascinating, and it's also very problematic for many patients because egg quality is really one of the most elusive things that we don't have the ability to test for today. Another important point is egg and sperm quality age differently, and that's because of our biology. And most people are familiar with the concept that women are born with every egg they're ever going to have, whereas men are continually making sperm well into their geriatric years. And as a result of that, sperm has the ability to repair damage that's accumulated over the years to the stem cells that make sperm. Whereas since women are born with every egg they're ever going to have, age has its effect upon egg quality. In fact, I hope it's not offensive to anyone to say this, but in my opinion, the first real sign of aging is a change in someone's fertility, because this is something that occurs years before someone ever experiences wrinkles or gray hair, and it occurs decades before people start losing calcium in their bones or other things that we often associate with aging. Now, the latest studies that actually look at the DNA within human eggs demonstrate that human egg quality peaks in the mid-20s. And this is fascinating as well because egg quality not only helps establish the pregnancy rate, but also the miscarriage risk. And it took a long time until we had the proper tools to study this, but we know today that teenagers are actually less fertile than women in their 20s. And this is for different reasons than we see a decline in fertility later on. In other words, what compromises egg quality in the teens is more related to genetic changes that occurred during the development of the ovary, whereas the decline in fertility that begins in the early 30s is really more related to age-associated changes within the eggs. Now, the reason that this is helpful to understand is at any given time, most of any woman's eggs are dormant, meaning that they're alive, but they're not really metabolically active or preparing to try to mature in order to be able to be chosen as the egg to ovulate or as the eggs that are recovered as part of fertility treatment. And the point being is the transition for an egg to be dormant to actually go through the final stages where it can be used is a process that actually takes several months to occur. But what's most important is how it relates to your efforts to conceive. And what we understand today is it's really the last 4 to 6 weeks leading up to an egg release where an egg is most susceptible to changes. Now, sometimes those changes can be a good egg becoming worse. Other times, if the proper interventions are considered, it might result in a fair egg becoming a better quality egg. And that's why by focusing on some of what we learned in studies on healthy aging, we've learned at various different ways we could try to target certain physiologic processes within the egg. Some of these are looking for trying to stimulate improvement in egg quality at the level of DNA. Other of these things are about trying to make sure that the egg has enough stored power to go through the metabolic changes necessary. And still others might be about trying to repair or produce different proteins that are necessary to optimize egg quality. But the bottom line is we've learned that most of the latest research that supports what changes are associated with healthy aging are the same sorts of changes that we recommend to optimize egg quality. Some of these include a whole food, plant-based diet. Now, this does not mean that someone has to become completely vegetarian, but one of the things we've learned, for instance, from the Stanford twin study, is that even identical twins that are placed on a plant-based diet, if they put one of the identical twins on a diet that is primarily a vegan or a whole plant diet and let their partnered twin just eat regular, what's considered healthy food, you can actually measure positive changes at the level of the DNA in as little as 8 weeks. And I think it's very exciting that this study demonstrated that that same timeline we're always talking about in priming people or preparing them to get ready for fertility treatment is a similar timeline. So 8 weeks can really make measurable changes at the level of the DNA. Other important things to look for is avoiding highly processed foods. Many of the chemicals that are added, we don't always know how these things might influence egg quality. And so since it isn't known, it's best to just avoid things with very long labels that have ingredients that you can't easily pronounce or understand. It's also important to pay attention how food is prepared, because cooking at very high heat, like is associated with deep frying or broiling, does add a lot of unhealthy chemicals that are present in the food that have been shown to damage egg quality. In fact, one aspect or chemical that's been looked at is something that they use the acronym AGE, Advanced Glycolated End Products, that these are chemicals that are created at very high heat. Even if you're deep frying something that might otherwise be healthy, like a plant, it can create these unhealthy chemicals. One of the other things that we've learned, like a popular myth that's been debunked, is that naturally caffeinated beverages in moderation have health benefits. Like small amounts of coffee or tea can actually have beneficial effects because of the polyphenols and the antioxidants and some of the other naturally occurring flavonoids and chemicals that are present in these beverages. And it's been shown that if you decaffeinate coffee or tea, you actually lose those health benefits. So instead of abstaining completely, if you are a coffee or a tea drinker, it's best to just moderate consumption to roughly about no more than 2 to 4 cups a day. And that's measuring cups, not necessarily an extra large cup, because that's probably more than is ideal. Another popular myth is that gluten needs to be avoided by everyone. And gluten is something that's a healthy protein for people that can digest it without irritation. So it's absolutely true that patients with celiac disease or gluten sensitivity should avoid gluten, but there's no additional advantage to avoiding gluten if it's something that you tolerate very well. Maintaining healthy sleep patterns and moderate exercise, these are critical. They reduce inflammation in the body and provide the egg with the ability to minimize any damage that occurs in those last several weeks, and also improving blood flow and stabilizing hormone levels. And then there's the ever present reduction of stress. Stress is fascinating because it's something we all experience. Naturally, it's what protected us in more primitive times. But today, many of us experience chronic stress. And there have been shown to be certain techniques that have been shown to help your body turn off the stress response and replace it with the relaxation response. Finally, everyone always wants to know what supplements might be most helpful and why. Here's the current list of what I recommend to my patients. Coenzyme Q10, which is something that helps the eggs store enough energy before release so that during that journey of cell division, it's able to have the energy it needs before implantation. Nicotinamide riboside and resveratrol and quercetin are three things that have all been linked to stimulate repair within the DNA. And there's some products that will combine two or all three of these ingredients in a single tablet, which makes it easier, but they're often sold in the market that is marketing to anti-aging. Vitamin D is about much more than strong bones. It absolutely can optimize egg quality, and studies have shown a very strong correlation there, as well as reducing miscarriage risks. Melatonin is something that is produced naturally in our sleep, but ironically, the eggs tend to pull the melatonin out of the bloodstream into the fluid that surrounds the egg during its development. And studies through IVF patients have shown that eggs that have the highest concentration of melatonin in the fluid are those that are most likely to fertilize and develop into healthy babies. And then finally, the ever-present omega-3 supplements. These are some of the healthy fats that can reduce inflammation in the body. They're very much involved in preserving and optimizing the membrane around the egg, so absolutely should be included. And I do encourage people to consider a plant-based product because unfortunately, some of the fish that are sometimes used in fish oil are not always living in the healthiest waters. And some of the pollutants have been shown to be byproducts in some of the fish oil products. So in summary, by taking the time to really meet with your provider, asking them the questions that they might be able to fulfill to you as to which supplements and diet and lifestyle tricks might be most useful in your situation, and also being aware of some of the medications that are being investigated over the years to potentially provide even greater access to optimizing and improving fertility through optimizing egg quality. Thank you very much, and I wish you the very best outcome on your journey.